One of the most often questions I get asked is, how did you become an author? Let's answer that question. While I was growing up, my family and I used to come to Walt Disney World quite often from the great state of Wisconsin. And while we were down here, I always had a special appreciation of the parks. I fell in love with the attractions, the characters, the sights, the sounds. I just fell in love with everything. So on November 18th, 2003, I applied for the Walt Disney World College program. And I got in. Now, while I was down on the program, my friends and I used to start noticing these different little details. Specifically, the first one that comes to mind is on the old parade float. One of the floats had Bernard and Bianca from the Rescuers there. Bernard and Bianca, I love those two. So anyways, so after I noticed them, I started to pay more and more attention to the different details that were found around the park. And everywhere I went, I would look and try to find every little hidden character that I could come up with, and it just became this game. Just kind of, go to the parks and try to find little details. And that was about it. It was just a game. There was nothing in my head whatsoever about a book or anything else like that. Fast forward about 4 or 5 years later, and I'm doing my student teaching in a kindergarten classroom. Now, one day, while the students are having their rest time, we were watching the movie Robin Hood. And while they were watching it, I started to wonder, where I can find references to Robin Hood in Walt Disney World. And I had my notebook for, my student teaching notes, and I opened up the very last page and I wrote down Robin Hood, and then I put down Magic Kingdom. And I started to list the different spots where you could find Robin Hood references. And I started to think this would be a really good idea for a book. And I started to kind of obsess over the idea of where I could find these different references. And I went through Robin Hood, and then I started going through Aladdin and Lion King and Peter Pan, and I started to realize that this would be a really interesting book for people to read, to find all the different references to their favorite films found throughout the Walt Disney World Resort. So I spent about a year and a half working on my very first book, From Screen to Theme. There it is. So after about a year and a half of writing it, I decided I was going to publish it. So I started to contact different people on how to exactly publish a book. And I bought a book on, publishing for dummies, and I bought a bunch of books about how to publish books. And I pitched the ideas to a few different companies, and a few different places really liked it. And then eventually I started to speak to different authors, and they said that their biggest regret in life was not self-publishing their first book. And they all had a different reason for it, whether it was the people take too much money or you don't have any control over it. And the more I listened to them, the more I got really worried, because this was something that I had put so much of my heart and soul into, and I just wanted to share with the world, and I didn't want them to fix anything up. So I decided to self-publish my very first book. And when I started to go through the final publishing phase, and after several trips down to Walt Disney World, I finally decided that when this book came out, the most important thing that I could do is actually move down to Florida. So the book was all set to be released, and I was all set to move down here, and both things happened on the same day, March 1st, 2010, which is why I have March 1st, 2010 on my brick over here, because that was the day that probably changed more of my life than anything else, where I moved down here, plus I became a published author. Now, as time would go on, I would write 3 more books, and the story behind those ones are, I had a section on my website called A Closer Look, where I took little details about different sections of the park, and it would go into details about the gift shops or the restaurants. And one of my brothers, who's not a huge Disney fan, contacted me saying, most people would probably find that as the most interesting part of your website. Maybe you should do an entire book about just the Magic Kingdom and just the Closer Looks. I said, that's a great idea. However, the only problem is I could go on to so much detail about just one land that I decided that I would have to turn this into a land-by-land book series, so I could really go into more detail than if it was just one giant book. Because otherwise people would be walking around with like a dictionary while they were walking through the parks. And that's how the Closer Look book series came about as well. Now, there's a whole lot more detail to go into about everything that occurred, and I'm sure we'll do more videos about that as time goes on here. But for now, that's the story of how I became an author. It's a very short, very simple, but it's the story of how I got to where I am today. And I'm extremely thankful for every little step along the way and how it changed my life and how it made me become the person I am today and the author that I am today. And I couldn't be prouder with all the details and all the fun facts that I've shared with people throughout the years. And I continue to do that on a daily basis and work for more and more books throughout the years. So, if you guys enjoyed this story, down below in the comments, let me know what, I don't know what that was, but down below in the comments, let me know what type of story you would like me to tell you guys next. Is there a question that you've always wanted to have answered? Put it down in the comments and I'll try to get to your questions next time. Until then, make sure you subscribe to us right down here on this channel and we'll see you guys all a little later. Bye-bye.